The vacation rental asset class is not new. It's been around for decades and decades. It's been around since before Airbnb existed, since before the internet. Those same properties that we underwrote to gross $45,000 a year back in 2015, those do $80,000 a year each now. So they're not cheap, but it is depending on what your budget is. There is a market for just about everybody who wants to invest in this type of asset class.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Glennda's Guru. And today I am here with Avery Carl, and I am so excited to sit down with her for a little bit and talk all things real estate. So whether it is about short-term rentals or vacation or second home destinations, or actually recruiting agent as well, Avery is here to tell us all about how she has built an amazing business. Avery, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm excited for you to be here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So for my listeners who may not know who you are, give us just like a little summary or some backstory.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Avery Carl. I run the number 2 team as of right now, but 3 years running number 1 team at EXP in the world. It's called the Short Term Shop. And we're a very niche down team. We only focus on selling vacation rental investments in vacation rental markets, so no primary homes. I grew up in the Southeast in Starkville, Mississippi, and I started investing in real estate because I was not happy with my job and did not ever think I was going to be a real estate agent. But I got my real estate license to start doing our own investment deals. If we're being really honest, because my husband was embarrassing me. He's a New Yorker and I'm a Southerner, and coming from New York down to Tennessee where we lived at the time trying to buy real estate, I kept having to apologize for him and be like, sorry, he's not rude. He's just a New Yorker. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just get my license and do this so I can stop having this conversation. So that's why I got my license. And I never actually wanted to be a real estate agent either. Even when I got my license, I was like, I'm just doing my deals. I'm not going to be a real estate agent. And what happened was friends started saying, oh, hey, you're making how much on that cabin in the Smoky Mountains? Well, help me find one, teach me how to do that. And then it became friends of friends. And then it became true clients. And all of a sudden here I was with a real estate business. So started that in 2018. And we were number 1 at EXP by 2021. So went relatively quickly just by kind of focusing on what I knew personally than just trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah. And I think that that's really, really critical, is that when you are trying to be everything to everyone, you are so scattered and you're spread so thin that you don't really have the opportunity to go deep in one area and really make an impact or build that business. So, and you've written a book and it's called Smarter Short-Term Rentals.
Yes.
And tell me, I mean, obviously it's about short-term rentals, but tell me what's the key? What's the key for that?
Okay. Well, I'm going to step back and say, we call them short-term rentals generally, across the United States. They get called Airbnbs, but I want to kind of separate the type of real estate that I invest in and that we help our investor clients buy into true vacation rentals. So the vacation rental asset class is not new. It's been around for decades and decades. It's been around since before Airbnb existed, since before the internet. But Airbnb just kind of democratized it and made it to where just mom and pop investors like myself can actually cash flow a property instead of having to pay a big management company 25%. But I think, the Airbnb industry kind of gets a bad name because, people are going into like starter home or like kind of retirement communities and buying properties and turning them into short-term rentals that could have been, somebody's primary home. And I'm not about that. I'm about, we're buying places in areas that historically like 90% of the properties that have ever been bought and sold have been either vacation homes or vacation rentals. Like down here in Destin 30A area, there's only 10,000 of us who live here, but there's 10 million people that come stay in our vacation rentals every year. So anyway, just like to separate that. But my books are about how to invest in short-term rentals. So the first one was called Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. It's about how to choose a market, kind of like what I just explained, how to choose that type of market, choose the right type of property, how to finance all that. And Smarter Short-Term Rentals, that came out this year. The first one came out 4 years ago. And it's more about how to optimize and scale the business side of your vacation rental business. So how to systematize everything, systems and processes, standard operating procedures, all that really dorky business running side of things.
I love it. I love it. So I actually go down to 30A. I love it down there. And we've rented a home down there every year for several years. And it is not cheap.
It's not.
And especially it's not cheap if you want to be on the beach, but it's not cheap anywhere.
No, it is not.
And so one thing that you said that really blew my mind was there's only 10,000 people who live here, but we have 10 million visitors a year. And ladies and gentlemen, think about the cash flow on that. That is huge. Yeah, and the weekly rental price is insane down there.
Yeah, and it depends on the market, it depends on the property. So we started the short-term shop and our own investing career in the Gatlinburg area in the Smokies. And back then I've been investing in short-term rentals since 2015, been investing in long-term rentals since 2013. We've got a few hundred rentals across the country, but 10 of them are the vacation rental type assets. And back then you could buy a cabin in the Smokies for $150,000 and it would gross, $45,000 a year. Those same properties that we underwrote to gross $45,000 a year back in 2015, those do $80,000 a year each now. So you don't have to go buy a $5 million home on 30A to be successful at this. The Smokies is not that cheap anymore, but there are other markets where if you are somebody who wants to just dip your toe, like a Myrtle Beach, you can get a condo for $250,000. Branson, Missouri, same thing. So they're not cheap, but it is depending on what your budget is. There is a market for just about everybody who wants to invest in this type of asset class.
And do you have a management company?
No. So the thing about short-term rentals, they're different from long-term rentals. So long-term rentals, you put them with a management company, they charge you 8 to 10%, no big deal. It's the rent's like $1,500 a month on each unit, no big deal. But with short-term rentals, the average management split is 20 to 25% of your gross income, which it really only takes about an hour a week to self-manage a short-term rental, really from anywhere in the country. And the reason we started self-managing ours was because we couldn't afford, we scraped together that first down payment, like pennies out of the bottom of my purse. We're digging through the car seats to make that down payment. And when we went to look for a management company, because that's what we thought you did, back then the split was 40%. And our whole goal, we already had one long-term rental, but our goal for investing in short-term rentals was because they cash flow more. So we thought, what can we buy that's going to make us the most amount of money the fastest so we can buy more? And when we heard 40%, we're like, no, we need that 40% so we can buy another one. So right. Back then, there weren't all these cool automation tools that there are now. We just kind of figured out how to manage our property remotely from Nashville. And we started teaching our clients how to do that. Now there's so many great tools to make it super easy. It only takes about an hour a week to manage one property. But 25% gets to be kind of a lot for not a lot of work. So to give you a little bit of context, in my 8 short-term rentals that I owned for a full year last year, we bought a couple this year, but last year, if I'd paid a manager 25%, I would have paid somebody about $250,000 to do the amount of work that, maybe is a $50,000 a year office job. So it stops making sense. So it's much easier to use automation tools and keep that 25%, go make that down payment on the next property. And then if you start to need help using a VA.
I love it. So we talked a little bit before we came on the air. So that you are looking for agents And so do you run teams in different markets? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So we have, I call them offices. We're 100% virtual. We have offices in 20 vacation markets across the country. A lot of them in the Southeast, but they don't have to be. I'm just familiar with the Southeast, being a Mississippi girl. So, a lot of beach markets, a lot of mountain markets, lake markets, things like that. We are looking to expand and add some new markets this year. We're looking for that true vacation type market that has very little hotel presence, has a lot of tourism. The economy is dependent on tourism. We really need some agents in Orlando. We're hiring a few in the Smokies in Tennessee. We're also looking in the Poconos in Pennsylvania and Park City.
Oh, wow. That is a lot. And so are you like the CEO of this business? Like you're running it?
I am. I am.
Oh my gosh. And what did you do before real estate?
So long story. So I went to undergrad for communication, corporate communication. What does that even mean? I don't know. I went to University of Texas on a soccer scholarship, and I really wanted to go to their business school, but the very special athletic advisors that they give you are like, no, major in communication. It's much easier so we can keep that GPA up and advertise to people. So I did it. And then 2008 happened. I graduated in spring of 2009, and there were no jobs for these soft majors like myself. So I bartended, and I have always played in bands. I was a guitar player and a bass player in a sloppy all-girl punk rock band. So I just did that for a while, moved to New York, lived there, bartended there.
Met your husband.
Met my husband in New York, yes. And once we kind of had been together for a little bit, we were like, man, somebody's going to have to like double their income to get a bigger apartment than this. Let's move to Nashville. A lot of New Yorkers were moving to Nashville. It kind of felt like coming home to me, coming back to the South. And I went back and got my master's and said, well, you know what? Let me just work in the music business, because there are probably a ton of people who used to be musicians who are now working in the music business. I mean, a lot of people like me. This would be awesome. It'll be fun. And so I got what I thought was my dream job. And it turns out the music business pays nothing because everybody thinks it's going to be awesome and fun. And so there's always somebody who will do it cheaper than you. So I got that job. And it's also like, it wasn't people who were ex-musicians who, went back to school, wanted to work in the music business. It was like a bunch of dorks who really wanted to like work for no money to say they were in a room with Keith Urban last night, which like I couldn't care less. There are people that I would care about, but a lot of the new country music, Nashville people are not it. And so I'm like, man, why am I doing this? I'm not making any money. This kind of sucks. And my husband and I, we got married, and we there was an Edward Jones like financial planning office in the building that I worked in. We'd saved up $10,000, and we were like, oh, we gotta be smart about this. We just got married, and I was like listening to all this Dave Ramsey. And so we take it in there, and we were like, what do we do? Help us out. We saved all this money. And the financial advisor, she was so polite about it, but she basically told us we didn't have enough money for her to bother with. And so we were like, oh, cool, we're losers. So we left, and we were thinking we just bought a house to live in. And our real estate agent at the time was really trying to get us to buy in East Nashville, which was super hip, fast appreciating. This was back in 2012. And we didn't want to live. We're coming from Brooklyn to Tennessee. We want to be out in the country. We're done with neighbors. So we did that. And so we started thinking, well, what if we bought one of those houses that are appreciating like that? We put a renter in it and let the renter pay the mortgage, the utilities, all that. And then in 25 years, when our future kids eventually need to go to college, maybe we can just sell these houses, buy one or two, sell them, pay for their college out of that appreciation. We won't have to come out of our own income, and we'll be these great financial geniuses. We didn't even know it was called real estate investing. And so we did that. We had like no research, went and did that. And it actually, we bought a house for $122,000. We saved up a little bit more money. And the mortgage on that was $647 a month. And we were able to rent it out for $1,550 a month. So we're making almost $1,000 a month, which coincidentally, after all the deductions and everything, was about what I was making at my dream job. So driving in Nashville traffic every day, an hour each way. I didn't like my boss. My boss didn't like me. I'm a typical problem millennial. And like, why am I doing this? This house is making the same amount while I sleep as me making all this effort. So that's why we kind of started getting into the real estate investing. But all that to say, I was a bartender, I was a musician, and then I was in the corporate world for a little while, and it sucked. And here we are.
So what position did you play in soccer?
I was a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I see that. I see that because you are, yeah, I can see that because you can block the punch. I love that. One of my best friends, her daughter is also a goalkeeper, and I love and my son played soccer. I think anybody who can stand there and just like want the ball to be kicked at them. I think that it's just such a special breed, and it's definitely a person who can succeed in business because you have no fear. Like, you've watched somebody kick the ball straight at your face and try and get past you. You have zero fear. I think that was great training. The other thing is what instrument did you play?
So I played guitar initially, and then I started playing bass because I could kind of get more gigs that way.
Yeah.
So a little bit of both.
You look like Stevie Nicks. Everybody tells you that?
Thank you. I get that occasionally, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I figured since you weren't a Keith Urban fan, you might be Stevie Nicks.
Yes. Yep. I've got tickets to take the kids to see Billy Joel and Stevie Nicks at the Superdome in New Orleans this year. So really excited about that.
Oh my God. When is that?
October.
Oh, wow. You're going to have a great time. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's get back to real estate. Sorry, I digress. And that's the great thing. It's my podcast. I get to do what I want to. And I love that. I get to have who I want on it, and I get to say whatever I want to say. And it's just like a great conversation. So you're this badass real estate agent. You have really honed in on like, what is your specialty? And you're not just doing it where you live, you're doing it in 20 markets, but it's all vacation rentals. Mm-hmm. And, I was thinking to myself, it's probably vacation season. If you're in 20 markets, it's vacation season 365 days a year somewhere, right? Like somewhere. You're doing business somewhere. And so when you go out and you meet with, Bobby and Susie, they call and they say, hey, we've got a vacation rental in Destin and we want to sell it. Do you first say, oh, wait a minute, I should buy this?
Well, sometimes I do. And a lot of our clients ask that. They're like, if these are so good, why aren't you buying all of them? Well, fortunately for everyone, I'm not made of money, but sometimes I do. There have been times that I'm like, oh man, this is a good deal. But there's also a lot of bad deals. There's a lot, it's the same as primary home sellers in a lot of ways. The neighbor got $1 zillion in 2021, and I also want $1 zillion, even though there's 3,000 homes on the market right now, and a normal amount would be under 1,000. So it can be very similar to a primary home seller.
That's so interesting. And so, I look at some of the houses that we have rented, and the majority of them are owned by corporations. Am I thinking clearly? Are corporations buying a lot of vacation homes?
Some are. There are some big vacation home funds out there, but not nearly the amount that you see in like single family long-term rentals. The BlackRocks and what have you some of them have dabbled and not done well just because they get so numbers focused, they forget the common sense. So we did have a big Wall Street fund come to us to sell some of their properties. And they had bought just the complete wrong things. Like, I don't know what agent they bought with, but they did things like they focus so much on the data. They'd say, okay, we want 5-bedroom properties. 5-bedroom properties typically make around X. So let's go find the cheapest 5 bedrooms we can find, and we'll have a bigger spread. And that was the way that they went about it. These people have more money and more MBAs than any of us could ever hope to have. What they didn't do is think, hey, is this something that somebody wants to rent on vacation? So they bought a 5-bedroom house, and they did this in multiple markets. Somebody got fired over this, I know, at this fund. So we listed like 10 properties for them. But one, like, they would be weird things like, okay, it is technically a 5-bedroom, but it's actually like a 2,000 square foot 3-bedroom with a detached garage that has a carriage house above it that was a studio apartment. And then they also converted the garage into a studio apartment. So yeah, it's 5 bedrooms, but a family that needs that many rooms is not going to rent this because they don't want to be all disjointed. They want to be all together. So it didn't rent well. So everybody's so worried about all the funds getting involved in vacation rentals, like at least in my industry. And they haven't had much success so far because they're just using data and not common sense of like, well, what do tourists want in this market? They want to be all together. And they just bought weird stuff, and we had a hard time selling a lot of it because it was weird and didn't perform well. So I don't think that's anything to worry about just yet. But a lot of those big buyers that have them on these big property management companies and have like 50 of them, there's so many that they aren't really taken care of. There's a lot of not cleaned really well, like a lot of deferred maintenance that just doesn't get taken care of. So, people get into vacation rental investing. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to buy in that market. There's so many of them. There's so many rentals available. But when you look, there's not really that many good ones for you to have to compete with.
There's not. And, and I look, because we do beachfront with a pool, in somewhere between, Panama City and Destin. And it's just, there's just such a little clump of like really good stuff because there's a bunch of us. So let me ask you, what is your favorite? Which one is your favorite that you've ever sold? What's your favorite vacation rental that you've ever sold?
That I've ever sold? Man, we have, back before COVID, we sold some beautiful stuff in the Smokies with beautiful views for just prices that would make you sick to your stomach now with how expensive everything's gotten. But I don't know. I think I like them all. I like the ones that make my clients successful because that allows us to help our clients be successful because those are the ones that make them come back and buy more with us. So those are my favorite.
Spoken like a true businesswoman. I love it. I love it. The ones that I love are the ones that keep them coming back for more. That is the best. And so is Destin your favorite market that you work in, or do you have a different market that you love?
So I am a beach girl. And even though the Smoky Mountain market, the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge area has been the best to me personally, when COVID happened and we were like, why are we, my husband transitioned out of his job. He was a classic rock DJ on Sirius and started working in the real estate business full time. He does all of the education on how to run your business with us and handles like all the education piece. And so we were like, man, we can move anywhere. There's no reason to be in this weird suburb of Nashville anymore. And I'm like, well, we're going to 30A. That's where we're going. So this is like my dream place to live. So it's my favorite market because it's my favorite place to be. But the Blue Ridge, Georgia market is awesome. I think we'll probably end up with one in Orlando because we're only 6 hours from there. And we take our kids more than quarterly to Disney. Mainly because my husband has turned into a Disney adult and the older he's gotten, but because of the kids. So we'll probably end up with one there. That's a good one too. I like the hill country of Texas. We've got an office there. I, went to UT Austin, Wimberley, Blanco, and New Braunfels. We would go down there and float the river like almost every weekend. So there's really no market that I don't like, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's cool. And so you're going to open in Park City, or you're already open in Park City?
We're going to open in Park City. So we don't have an agent there. We don't have an agent in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. We do have some in Orlando, but we've had some turnover. So we need a few new ones in the Smokies, but no, we're not in Park City yet.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a great market. I've actually never been to Park City, but I'm going to Vail in October, and
Mm.
it's so beautiful out there. I don't ski, I don't do anything like that, but I do think that it's such a beautiful area of the country, and I can see. I want to ask you about Picasso. Like they're like I don't even know how to describe it. Would you call those? I can't decide if they're trying to be a vacation rental business or if they're trying to be a timeshare.
Yeah, I would call it like an updated version of timeshares because
Yeah.
it's, but I don't think they go over like 8 owners. I'm not exactly sure what their end, exit plan is on that. I've seen a few listings around here selling in that fractional way. I haven't seen any of them sell that way, but it's interesting. I've been paying attention.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me. They've been trying to do it for several years now, and I don't know if it's like taken off or not taken off, or I don't know very much about it. But I thought maybe with you being in like that vacation rental space, you could give me some clarity on that. But to me, anything that's difficult for me to understand, I don't like to invest in it. I, a beach rental, I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Probably because I see how much I pay to rent it for a week, and I'm
Yep.
like, I could rent it for 10 weeks and pay all of the expenses on the whole damn thing. Yeah, it's so crazy. It's so crazy. So what's next for you? Like, where do you go from here? You're writing books, your husband's doing the education, you've got a ton of agents, you got a ton of markets, you got tons of real estate. Where are you going from here?
Just I'm working on hiring a new, I guess we call it COO, to kind of help me run things and let me kind of take a step back, because my genius zone of running the team is in the lead generation. So hiring somebody to help me run the actual day to day of the team so I can focus on that without killing myself and just hanging out with the kids. The whole reason that we started investing in real estate and doing this and going the entrepreneurship route instead of keeping our W-2 corporate jobs is so we had freedom of time to give our kids like a 2 stay-at-home parent experience. So we're able to run a big business and, give them a legacy, leave them something if they act right. And also give them a 2-parent stay-at-home parent experience. So, we're both going to club soccer tryouts tonight. We're eventually they're going to get tired of us, but there's been times where like, you want to go to Disney World tomorrow? Yeah, let's go to Disney World tomorrow. Let's surprise the kids. So that's the reason that we do all this. So just kind of slowing down to be able to enjoy that.
How old are your kids?
They're 4 and 6. So
And who had appendicitis? Appendicitis?
Okay, so that was my daughter, and it ended up being a kidney infection.
Oh,
And but yeah, so it was like emergency room, all these things, and they tried to tell us it was strep throat, even though she tested negative. I'm like, she says her back hurts. Your back does not hurt when you have strep throat. So she had that, and then the next week, my son, who's 4, was like, "Oh, Max, my daughter, Max had a weird health thing last week. Hold my beer." So he woke up one morning. He'd been at the deer camp with my husband, and my husband was like, "Hey, he's a little bit wobbly." I'm like, "What do you mean wobbly?" And then he just kind of didn't answer the question. He's like, "We saw 16 turkeys today." And they came home, went straight to bed. It was late. Woke up the next morning. My son could not walk. He couldn't walk. And I was like, "Oh my God." So I flipped out, took him to the emergency room here in 30A. They made us go in an ambulance to Pensacola to the children's hospital. So I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, "Oh my God, we've been too blessed. This is it. He's got a brain tumor." And turns out there's this thing that can happen to kids. He'd had the flu a few weeks prior called, I forgot what it's called, acute cerebellar ataxia, post-viral acute cerebellar ataxia. Basically, if they've been real sick, if they've had a virus or an infection, it can inflame their brainstem or their cerebellum and make them walk like a drunk person. And then it just goes away in like a week or two. It, like no other side effects. It just goes, it's just a weird thing that can happen when they have the flu. And it was terrifying. So anyway, we had like 2 weeks of kids having weird health things right in a row. They never get sick, but then twice in a row is like insanity. But everybody's good now.
that's awesome.
Ready for summer.
Well, that's great to hear. I'm so glad that everybody's feeling better because, and for ladies and gentlemen, if you're wondering how I knew this, Avery was going to join us, and then she had an emergency, and I'm like, no problem. And that I think that is the great thing. You hit on it a little bit earlier. That is one of the great things about real estate is that you really do. If you run your business like a business, you really do have the ability to make your own schedule so that you can go to Disney, you can go to club soccer tryouts. Your kid gets sick, you don't have to, you're not dependent on your boss or your job to let you off to take your kid to wherever they need to go. So I think that that's one thing about real estate that a lot of people don't realize is that it really gives you the opportunity to design your own life.
It does. And it'll kick your ass. You're going to get your ass kicked, but you will get to design your own life, which is worth it.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Avery, I have absolutely loved having you on here. I got to tell you, I have a few short-term rentals here in Atlanta that are not. It's not a vacation market, obviously, and you hit the nail on the head right out of the gate. That there is a huge difference between a short-term rental that is not in a vacation community and one that is in, a traditional neighborhood. It is, just a crazy thing to try and do it when you're not in a real vacation market. So, and I love it. And I can't wait to read your book. We would love a copy of it. So if you have an extra copy, we would love for you to send us one so that we can talk a little bit about it. But Smarter Short-Term Rentals, your new book. And Avery, you have been an absolute wealth of knowledge. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Avery, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. It's at the Avery Carl. If you want to follow the shop, it's at the Short Term Shop and theshorttermshop.com.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have ever been interested in vacation rentals, short-term rentals in vacation markets, Avery is your go-to girl. She is in 20 markets across the country and has a host of agents ready and willing to help you make your vacation dreams come true. My name is Glennda Baker. I'm a real estate agent in Atlanta, Georgia. This has been Glenda's Guru. I have had my guest, Avery Carl, here, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. Thank you so much.